Hello, in this video, I'm going to introduce you to JavaScript modules and show you why you should consider using modules in JavaScript to separate different sections of your JavaScript application. Let's begin now. Welcome back. JavaScript modules is a concept that allows us to split our code into small pieces, each that serves a specific function. These pieces of code are put together in a file and we call them a module. This file is then imported into the main.js file according to the needs of the application. We can use modules to run asynchronous code snippets based on a specific kind of function, or we can just use it to split up a large JavaScript file and reorganize our code to make it more easy to maintain. So think, for example, in a situation where you're building an e-commerce JavaScript application, you'd need to split up the cart, the product, the inventory, and every other functionality into a small reusable component. In that case, we would call it a module in JavaScript. On my screen here, you can see I have prepared a product. I have made up the markup and the styles to save time. So this is what we're going to use to explain this concept of modules in JavaScript. On the VS Code here, I have an empty app.js and my index.html has the markup for this product that you can see on the screen here. So I'd like to begin by creating a module file. So you can organize modules into different directories or folders depending with your project's needs. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I'll simply create a single file for a module. So I'll call it product module.js. So we can always move this into a folder. And once you move that into a folder, you need to take care of your import path so that it corresponds with the right path for your modules. So inside this file, there are three things that you need to remember. First, you are trying to encapsulate the code so that this particular module serves a specific purpose. So it's about encapsulation. Then we export this code. Then inside the app or the main JS file, we import the module. Inside this function, I'll define the product details. So I can call this product data. Then this is going to be a JavaScript object. Then in this example here, I have the image. The product also needs a title. So maybe we can begin by the name. Then we can give this simply as sample product. Then we can give this, from the name we need a price. We can give it a number. Then we can give it an image. Then this image we can just call it, so it's going to be a string, product image.png. So that's the data we are going to use for this particular module. Then we now need to create a function that updates these values. The values on the screen using what we have in our data here. This idea is to split up to make a module reusable. We are trying to make sure like this component can be reused by other, like you can use it to create multiple other kinds of products. You simply feed in the data, then call the functions, and it's going to automatically create several products. So if you look at our HTML here, we now need to get a function that grabs each of these divs, then updates that their values based on this data here. We begin by writing the export keyword since we intend to export this function. So we export this. We are going to export this function. Then we are going to call it update product details. Inside this function, we need to begin by defining the various elements that we have on the screen here. So these elements include the image, then we have the price and the title and the title. So here we define the product name, which is going to be equal to, we now use the document.getElementById method to get our product. So we want to get the product name. That gives us the product name. Then we can repurpose this code. Then we have this as the product image. Then we get the div for the product image. Then we can have this as the product price. Then we get the ID, the price. So we can go ahead and now update these details dynamically. So we can begin with this product name. Then we'll use a method like text content. Product name text content should be equal to product data dot name. Then we can also update. We can change this to src, which is the image source. Then we can do product image dot source should give us product image. No, this should be product data dot image source. Finally, we can update the price. This is going to be text. We can use text content. So this function updates these details dynamically. So we're going to repurpose this function to create more products. Then we can now create another function that alerts us once something is added to the cart. So you can do something like add to cart. Then in here, we can simply do an alert. Then inside this alert, we can pass in the product data. We can use the backticks and syntax. So in here, we can say added the product now. In here, we do product data dot name. So that has been added to cart. So this function, we are going to call it once an item has been added to cart. So these are our two functions that we are going to export into this app.js. So to import these functions, you use the keyword import. Then you pass in the module names. You can pass this as well. Then from you give it the path. Product module. So we are simply now importing these modules to this main file. This module file, we are now importing it to this main file using that import function. So whatever you export in this module, you're going to import it here. So here I've combined the two. So I'd like to save this and open the console to see what's happening. Then I minimize it. For this to work, we now need to add this app.js in the header here. So in our header here, we include it using the script tag. So script. Then we give it a type. Once you're working with module, you need to give it a type, which should be module. Then you give it the path, the source of the file, which should be app.js. You also need to include the module as well. So this will be module.js. It should be product module.js, and it's in the same folder. in the root folder. So you never forget to, if you're working with modules, you need to add the type for both the main file and the module as the type module. So we need to save that. Then there is an error here. So we can see this error, like this is not being loaded as it should. The module cannot be loaded. To debug this problem, we need to look at how we are including the modules as well as how we have added them on the main index.html. Everything seems to be okay because we are defining the type as module, so this seems to be okay. Then we need to ensure this module name is right, so this seems to be okay, as well as this one, which is add to cart, and it seems to be okay. So I'd like to enlarge this so that you see. The problem has something to do with we've left out .js. So we need to add that, then that should correct the problem. Yeah. So we fixed that issue. Back now to the module code. For us to load this module functionality and to update this, we need to create an extra function that is going to add a click event. So we can begin by doing something on the window, then you add an event listener. This event listener should be based on load, so that the data is updated once the window is loaded. Then we can pass a function here. Then now this function, in this callback function, we are going to call this function to automatically update once the window is loaded. Then now we need to take care of our add to cart button, because right now once we click, nothing happens. So we need, once we click, we call this function. So we begin by defining the add to cart button. Then we use document.get element by ID to grab the ID of the button. So this is the ID of the button. So we copy that. So we now have the button. Now on this button, we need to add an event listener. And this event listener has something to do with the click, because this is a click event. This should be a click. Once the button is clicked, what do? We call this function. So once that button is clicked, we are going to call that function. So this is going to allow us to have the full functionality of a cart. So once the button is clicked, this message added to cart is going to be displayed. So I'd like to save this, then we check the console and see if there are any errors. There are no errors on the console. Let's click on add to cart to see what happens. On add to cart, the message is displayed. That's how you create a module in JavaScript. This is a quick tutorial, and I hope it pointed you in the right direction and you learned something new. If you did, kindly consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to this channel. Check out my other videos on JavaScript, React, and Vue, and all web development tutorials. I hope by the end of this video, you've learned how to create and use modules in JavaScript. If you did, kindly consider giving this video a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. Thank you, and see you in the next video.